Many people don't know me because I am the power behind the power.
Could you give me the framework on how you take people through your program?
What we do is we take people experientially to learn the business success model. You create a niche. You have to leverage that niche. And if there's anything that we're famous for, it's leverage.
You were actually business partners with Robert Kiyosaki before Rich Dad, and a lot of what he teaches has been learned and influenced by Money and You.
Money and You make you realize you are really the source. You are the CEO. You act fast, you fail fast, you correct fast, you succeed fast.
How come people like myself never heard of Money and You before I met you?
Because
I just finished my interview with Doria, and I'm making this intro because I'm like, man, this was such an interesting conversation. This young lady who's going to be turning 80 in a few years is the person that helped launch Robert Kiyosaki and train what he's up to, and the person that helped train and launch Tony Robbins. And there was other people whose names got dropped that have been influenced by her. She's really been the person that's been behind the scenes, but so many things that we take for granted, even in how people train and philosophies, have stemmed from Doria and in her Money and You program. In fact, she has people internationally, like she has thousands upon thousands of people that have gone through her program. She's doing some really cool things. I met her at an event and was very drawn to just her. I can't begin to just describe like my conversation. It was one of those very unique conversations. So a lot of times I'm talking to people who are like very structured, analytical, or going through different things. And this was like the exact opposite. And yet I found myself taking so many notes. In this conversation, I asked her a few questions and she's just talking, and it's so beautiful, and there's so many nuggets that she drops, and she's just really in free flow, which is special. She talks about leverage. The reason I'm making you this intro is I'm going to challenge you who may be like, I want to just look at case studies and numbers. Like I'm going to challenge you that listening to this and consuming this can help in so many other areas of your life. Understanding the power of niches, understanding the power of leverage. I asked her to define leverage. She gives example after example of how to use leverage. And I've been directly impacted by so many people that have been impacted by her. We talk about ripple effects. We talk about synergy. We talk about the physics of ripple effects. We talk about scarcity. She talks about the 3 stages of money. She gives away gifts generously. And she's obviously just launched a book that I think has already been a bestseller, but will continue to make big ripples in the world. And so overall, I'm excited to hear your feedback on this. Enjoy. Doria, welcome to the BetterWealth Show.
thank you. I'm so happy to be here. You know how much I like to influence young people. And at my mid-70s, as I'm exiting the world of profitable business and just moving into service, I want to be of service to you and your audience.
Well, it's rare that I can speak to somebody who's both influenced and trained Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins. You are well-loved. You're well-respected. You're a superstar internationally. I don't think you're as well-known in the United States as you are internationally. You train people all across the world how to think about money. You're finally coming out with a book that's going to be a best-selling book, if it's not already. And I love it. And so there's a lot that we can talk about. You talk about leverage, talk about income generating options. We talked about what's fact versus what's opinion. When we met in California, we were both at an event, and we were very drawn to each other. And you were just blowing my mind on some of the stories that you were sharing with me. And it was impossible. Like I walked away and I'm like, no wonder you've been successful, because everyone that you come in contact with, you're like a bright light, but you also have a ton of wisdom and a ton of track record. And so I know that's like a very long opening, but how in the world did you get hooked up with Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins? And like, how did
they get hooked up to me?
That's a better question. How in the world did they get connected with you? And why don't you just share a little bit of inside baseball there? Because I know our audience has been impacted very much directly and indirectly by both of those.
Yes. So first, I just wanted to say one of the reasons why I gravitate towards young people like yourself is because I started in this company when I was 29 years old. I am now in my mid 70s, heading towards 76. And this is all natural. This is what the good life and living the principles and living your purpose and doing good does. So many people don't know me because I am the power behind the power. And what I have done is that I have made it my business for me to be the owner of the business, the CEO of the business. So I hire people, and I was around by and I wanted to say by the grace of God, and also the Chinese like to say good luck, that I was still at the beginning of what could now be considered the entrepreneurial, experiential, transformational training industry, which many of you are involved in. So I attended the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind when I was 28 years old. And there, the creators of that work, Marshall Thurber and Bobby T. Porter, and the story is all in the book, they were combining human potential movement principles, what now is considered, personal development, personal growth, mindset work, coaching work. Through the decades, it has changed names. And I didn't know that, because I fell in love with the work, and I used to be a court reporter. I was going to grow up to be an attorney. And I pivoted into that area of entrepreneurial education without knowing that we were creating a whole new paradigm, a new industry. And if I may ask your audience, for everyone to stay really open and to listen to me, everything that I'm sharing about myself, it applies to you. I want you to know it applies to you. I'm a middle-class girl from Chile, an immigrant. I got brought to Los Angeles when I was 12 by an immigrant family. They were business owners and started at the bottom, but didn't take them very long to become successful because they had already the mindset of being entrepreneurial, and then also hard work, entrepreneurial, and the principles that I so teach now in all my different programs. I hire people to teach for me is things like leverage that we mentioned earlier. So what I ended up doing when I was 28 years old, I fell in love with the work. I moved from Hawaii to San Francisco to be with this group. And unbeknownst to me, we were now creating a movement of applying generalized principles to business, doing good, creating wealth, saving the world, and changing the paradigm of education so that people can, children right now should be training on money, on how money works, how business works, how to start a business, how does insurance work, whole life insurance work, how does the world work? And so I was privy to that. And so when I was 32 years old, Tony Robbins was 22. Then it's a long story on how we met him, but he came into our space, into a program called Money and You that was an offshoot from that business school. And we wanted people to learn about neuro-linguistic programming and what Tony was teaching. So now we catch him really young. I'm 33, he's 23, and we end up now creating an economic engine around him and created things like planning charts and visualization charts, hooked him up to people that could really support him. And then he didn't really become famous until 1989. And then, of course, we remained in supporting each other. But what you see, that there's always the power behind the power. There's always somebody that's pulling the strings. And Robert pretty much did Money and You, I believe, in 1981 in Honolulu. He came to do a program with Buckminster Fuller, fell in love with the work. We promoted Money and You in Honolulu together. And when the mentors, and this is a good lesson for everyone, my mentors, the people that created this work, went on to do other work, and I inherited the most powerful intellectual property in the world, as far as I'm concerned. It's worth a bomb because I built it so. So now I need a partner. I'm 36 years old. It's 1985. I need a partner, and I need a Marine. I need somebody that's going to do what needs to be done. I need somebody who's trainable, coachable, open, and what we call, quote unquote, a hungry dog. Robert and I love that term, a hungry dog. A hungry dog is somebody who it's not a mean thing. It's not a demeaning term. It's actually somebody who's hungry. They're hungry for success. They're hungry for wealth, but they're also hungry for making the world work for 100% of humanity. They're hungry for eradicating poverty and hunger and a problem. Maybe is child trafficking. Maybe is eradicating poverty by doing financial literacy. So now we build Robert. We do his first best-selling book, which was called "If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School." He's in the investment quadrant, which I'm not in. I'm in the business entrepreneurial quadrant, and he's also in that. But Kim really loved investments. So now he needs to go and launch his own business. So after 9 years together as business partners, he went on, and then within 2.5 years, ended up creating Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But the core, the essence of that book is the teachings in Money and You and the things that I have mentioned. So that kind of gives you a little bit of the history. There's much more to it.
So what I'm hearing is Money and You, which is something that you run, correct?
I own, and I created the economic engine, and I hire instructors, and we train instructors and all kinds of people.
So Money and You, which you own and lead, was the foundation that both Tony. What?
I don't lead it. I hire people.
Okay, you hire. What I'm trying to give you credit. You're the influence, and you're leading indirectly by hiring people. You get the point.
Yes,
But that's the foundation that Tony Robbins got started on, and you saw him launch his deal, and then you were actually business partners with Robert Kiyosaki before he launched his Rich Dad, and a lot of what he teaches has been learned and influenced by Money and You.
Absolutely. And the business for entrepreneurs.
Which leads me to my next question. How come people like myself never heard of Money and You before I met you?
Because I have been in the Asia Pacific region. I have been on the other side of the world. And if you go to Kuala Lumpur, if you go to Singapore, we have 40,000 graduates of Money and You in Singapore. Quite a few people know us. And because I, as a leader, kept choosing to be
behind the scenes.
I mean, behind the scenes. But I personally kept choosing humanitarian work and not to build this huge billion-dollar company.
My next question is, I know this is probably tough because you guys have it's a whole program, but could you give me the framework or the steps on how you take people through your program? Because if I could get a snapshot, obviously you've invited me to come. I will take you up on that offer one of these days. And I just wanted to say, like, if this resonates with you, get yourself to a Money and You event. But could you, for our listeners and viewers, could you share with us the framework, how you teach? Like, what is Money and You if you had to describe it?
So Money and You is the 3.5-day experiential program. 65% of it are games and exercises. If you've seen anybody that uses flip charts, color markers, music, and some exercises, they either are Money and You graduates or learn from Money and You graduates, or pretty much we're the mothership. So for 3.5 days, what we do is we take people experientially to learn the business success model. And the business success model is very simple. You learn from masters or experts. So congratulations, Caleb, because you're bringing experts and masters to go ahead and you're leveraging your human capital to train and to support your people. So you bring experts and masters, you create a niche. You have to create something for marketing that either you made something much better than it was, or you are now creating your own new product. You're creating a niche. You have to leverage that niche. And if there's anything that we're famous for, is leverage. Marshall Thurber put on the map the word leverage. Prior to him, in 1978, the word leverage was only being used in the money markets, leverage buyouts. It was not used in the context of entrepreneurship. So you leverage through aligned teams. You build teams, you put systems in place, duplicatable, self-correcting systems in place. And now you go to the next level of the business success model where you create synergy. Synergy occurs out of having clear rules of the games, clear policies, clear communications lines, and collaboration. So when you reach synergy, we are basically going into major collaboration. And what is happening in the world right now, the paradigm shift that all of you, my young people, and thank you so much, Caleb, and to all of you, is the age of collaboration requires for you, instead of competing with others, you find ways for you to collaborate and find those niches within their businesses. Let's say you take a competitor and you go and find out what area they are not able to fulfill with their market. And if you fulfill that, then they get a percentage of that. So now it becomes a mutually beneficial financial arrangement, and they can do it for you and you can do it for them. So synergy is very powerful. It doesn't just happen within your own team, but it also happens with others in your industry. And then from synergy, you go into results. And ultimately, in the business success model, is creating results, and results will speak for themselves. So like right now, the book became a major bestseller within 48 hours of its official launching because we actually put a system in place for the launching. And within 48 hours, it was a bestseller not only in 9 categories, but also became, we moved in from 20 million plus books in Amazon. We went to 1,532, something like that, which is unheard of. What that was a result of me collaborating with so many, and the word got out, and they go, oh my God, let me just peek at the book. They peeked at the book, and then they went, oh my God, it's the history, but it's also teaching about her favorite subject, leverage. And so now that collaboration, and when you read the book, you will see that I'm edifying all these people and all these systems. So it's some about me, but you become an orchestrator. So I want you to think of yourself, money and you begins to make you realize that you are really the source. You are the CEO. You're the one that made those mistakes. You're the one that needs to forgive yourself for those mistakes. You act fast, you fail fast, you correct fast, you pick yourself fast, you succeed fast. So now you have this model within yourself. And in Money and You, one of the things we're very famous for is planting seeds in people's consciousness. And so these little seeds don't pop up until a live situation occurs. And the reason that occurs is because of the experiential learning. So we were the OGs, the pioneers that put experiential learning in place. And it's not just doing a one-to-one exercise, which is fantastic, but it's actually putting people into exercises that it requires for them to go within themselves, see their own behavior, and they will make the correction. You cannot change another person. You can change an environment. The environment will change the people. And then once you set all the different rules of the game and you participate with them and make it safe for them, then they will discover within themselves what it is that they want to correct. And choosing wealth is something that you have to cut through your own deservability, thresholds. All of us have, for instance, a limit of how much money we can make, a limit of how much our parents made, what we were taught in our environment. So now you have to constantly be stretching, and it is uncomfortable. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're really going for your dreams and you want to solve a big problem, you want to just be out there and become a leader and influence whatever it is, you have to get used to being uncomfortable. And so in Money and You, we don't purposely make people uncomfortable. And we make a very safe space with a lot of music and color markers and food and frequent breaks and graduates that come back to help out with certain games. And so we make it really safe in the program for them to begin to kind of explore their uncomfortableness around success, which so many people have. It is a very small percentage of people, and usually they were raised in very successful environments, in very rich families. I actually can tell immediately somebody when they come, a young person comes from a wealthy family, they have a sense of entitlement without it being negative. It's not negative. It's just that they were raised that way. Oh yeah, I deserve that. Of course, I'd much rather have a Lamborghini than having, a Toyota. I mean, of course not, and that energy is very rare, believe it or not. So for the rest of us mortal beings that grew up in middle class families, then we have to build our deservability. But there's something even more genius and more beautiful, which is for you to choose a grand problem that really bothers you, something that you absolutely hate. And it could be anything. It could be from people overdosing from drugs and drunk driving, or it could be, people being poor and hungry like mine. And by the way, we have no idea where that came from. We still talk about it in my family. I never been hungry. We never been poor, and we never been homeless. We never been none of that. But from the time I was little, I came into this world with wanting to feed people I don't understand why there's still hunger and poverty in the world, because all those problems have solutions since the early 70s. So now you become a pot piper. You become like in your style. You never have to be anything but yourself, you guys. It's like, this is it. This is how I am all the time. They will tell you. I am kind of like a little bit of a goofball, but I'm pretty smart. I'm street smart. And I love to learn, and I love being excuse the language, dumbest person in the room. I am a sapiosexualist. Now, do you know what that is, Caleb?
No, I'm not even going to try to spell that either. Yeah.
Sapiosexualist. It sounds like somebody that loves frogs. A sapiosexualist is somebody who falls in love with intelligence. With intelligence. I love intelligence. I love facts. I love what really works, what doesn't work. I don't like make-up stuff. I don't like silliness and things that don't make sense. It's like, and I love people who are committed to the betterment of humanity. You being a billionaire doesn't impress me. You being a billionaire that's handling a big world problem, I'm in love with you. So be yourself.
Um, Doria, first of all, thank you. There's very few people that I can bring on that can just stream of conscious, just talk and it be so valuable. I wrote so many things down. I obviously want to learn more about leverage, so just bookmark that because I have more other questions that I want to ask before that. Obviously, talking about synergy, it's so interesting. Collaboration over competition. That's been something that you've probably been saying for 30 plus years. And I've just heard recently, and it was something that I think Dan Sullivan has been saying, and it's inspired people like myself to be like, okay, let's collaborate over compete. And you're saying actually a form of synergy is leverage, because when you can find people that you can add value to, and you're like adding value to them, but then as a result, they're adding value to you because they might have their customers might be perfect customers for you, but you're able to serve their people, and together 1 + 1 = more than 2, like, is a perfect example of leverage. The value of results, just, and you talking about that. But when you talk about choosing a grand problem, one thing, the people that I'm most attracted to in life are the people that are creating a problem that's almost impossible to solve. But that vision of saying we are going to solve this problem is very attractive. Is that do you guys teach that in in you, and like, just is it better to be like, to what's the psychology of picking the problem versus making it very aspirational? Like, for example, like, I want people to live more intentionally, but what might be more effective is for me to try to solve something that makes me angry versus an aspirational, like, wanting more people to live intentionally. Because that, even and when I say that, it's hard to even quantify or grasp what that actually looks like. But people going hungry, or like Charity Water wants to bring clean water to every single human being, and like, you hear Scott Harrison speak, and you're ready to just like give all your money to his cause because you're just so drawn from what they're doing. And so I know I'm asking a lot of running questions here, but you have the brain to take some of this stuff. Talk to me about why solving a big problem, like the psychology there, and then I want to really understand leverage, because that's one of the things that we bonded on is reading Naval and watching some of his stuff and his tweets. Like, he talks about leverage in such a way that as a young kid helped me think differently. And I'm sure he learned directly or indirectly from people like you, or Money and You. And so I would love to hear, like, from the OG herself, how you've articulated leverage. But before that, talk to me about problems and why it's so important to pick a problem that you hate. If you're a high income earner or own a successful business, you're already creating real value in the world. The real question is, are you keeping that money, protecting it, and growing it the way that actually supports your long-term goals? At BetterWealth, we help people like you better keep, protect, and grow their wealth through various tax strategies, estate planning, specially designed life insurance, retirement planning, and even a fractional family office service. If you're interested in one or more of the areas we can serve and want to learn more, the next step is to book a free clarity call with us. Click the link in the description or tag comment below to get started. Back to the video.
Okay. So the first thing is, are you talking about Dan Sullivan, the great, he's out of the East Coast and he is a great consultant, Dan Sullivan?
Yes. And he actually in Canada, but yes, he runs Strategic Coach.
Okay. I'm pretty sure, I don't think that there's that many famous Dan Sullivans, but he's
No.
a Money and You graduate. And he is a
Okay.
great student of Buckminster Fuller and of Marshall Thurber, the creator of this
Okay.
work. And so, here we go with the little roots, right? So,
Yes.
so I'm answering your question. I promise you I'm answering your question. So there are generalized principles that run us all the time, whether we like it or not. So a generalized principle is gravity. If you fall off a building, you're going to land on the ground. Gravity exists. Another generalized principle is leverage. We love leverage, and leverage always occurs, and it came from the lever, right? That if you have a lever, you put extra weight on it, you can lift much more than without that lever there. Then there is a generalized principle that Money and You is famous for, and Buckminster Fuller, the great Buckminster Fuller, taught us this principle, and it's the science of is the physics of ripple effects called precession. So precession, we are always creating ripple effects, whether you like it or not. It's like our actions create ripple effects, whether they're positive or negative. It depends on what you're focused on. So when you focus on something that's going to add value to humanity, it's going to add value to a huge number of people. That's how billionaires become billionaires. They solved a problem that many, many people bought into it. That's it. It's so basics. Economics is so basics. Is you just have a problem that billions of people have. They buy into it. They make it as low as possible, and that they become billionaires from it. Okay? So when you choose a big problem to solve, the precessional effects, the ripple effects of that are going to be much more magnificent than you choosing just to be a billionaire. So when somebody says, oh, I want to be a billionaire, okay, and why not? But let me just say very quickly, have you Googled it lately? Have you AI it lately? There's only about 3,500, 3,600 billionaires in the world. Let's say 4,000, because there's a bunch of Chinese, Middle Eastern that I'm never going to tell you they're billionaires because they don't like lists. So let's say there's 4,000 billionaires. What the heck? You know, what happened to being a multimillionaire? What happened? $100 million is really nice, what Kiyosaki and I used to call sushi money, okay? So let's just really be a little bit more realistic. Let's say, okay, or a better one for some of you, because not everybody wants to be a millionaire, is financially free, financially independent, that you are going to have enough. And here, I'm still answering your question. We have to take into consideration another principle. So you have scarcity, some idea that got put in the map by Thomas Malthus, who was born in 17-something, died in 18-something, and the whole world bought into scarcity, which is the basics of all economics, which is the management of scarce resources, which is no longer true. So now you have to begin to work on your mindset, on the way that you think from the place of sufficiency. So you cannot go directly from scarcity to abundance. That is impossible. Impossible. So you have to go from scarcity to sufficiency. In the space of sufficiency is a moment-to-moment self-mastery. This is where personal development, mindset work, coaching works, masterminds work, because you need to be surrounded with people that will constantly be working with you. I've been working on myself next year for 50 years. I started at 26 years old. So now you are now working every day on scarcity. You're now working on sufficiency. And now you're working on a big problem that you're going to solve. And what most people don't realize, that when you go for solving that big problem, you become a pretty amazing human being, because now it's much more purposeful. It's much, people are attracted to you. People want to work with you. You become this attractive person. And then what's going to happen in the world of generalized principles, which happen at all times, you're now creating precession. You're creating ripple effects that now begin to create economic engines, begin to create, you being invited to all these things and to do all these things. So now you start becoming that which you only dreamed about, and you went, oh my God, I want to be just like him. I want to be just like her. So there is something so profoundly powerful about choosing to solve a major problem, which creates ripple effects that are absolutely dreamlike. Now, the brain, the mind, the conscious mind will not understand this. This is where you're going to have to believe a little bit. If you're going to believe somebody, why don't you believe somebody like me? I'm a human experiment. You are a human experiment, every single person. So I was a young girl, suffered tons. When you hear my story, you're going to cry. I mean, it's horrible. My first love died. My babies died. Bunch of my friends died of suicide, drugs, Vietnam. I was a pretty broken up little girl at 24 years old, even though I had a lot of money and very successful. But I had an enlightenment experience. And it was like, oh, I have a job to do. I find my job. And now I become this human experiment of applying human potential, coaching, self-improvement principles to business, to making money. And now I'm also interested in eradicating poverty and hunger. So we're these holistic things. We are holistic beings. We're not just like this thing that the brain thinks that we are. We're constantly emanating energy. We're constantly creating frequencies. That, by the way, is scientifically proven quantum science, in case you haven't touched that yet, but I know you have. So now you are looking at, how do I create an economic engine around my life purpose that solves a big problems and begins to now, and I use the 4 steps that any entrepreneur needs to learn, which we touch upon on Money and You, but we really go into it in our 8-day business school for entrepreneurs, which is sales and marketing, people and organization, money and finances, and what you're good at. That's how you begin to create an economic engine. But marketing is a rocket science. But without that spirit, if I may call it, without that light that we all have, that we are now being asked more than ever to shine in the world, because it's a pretty crazy world all over the world right now. Now you have this beautiful light that is now beginning to influence your intelligence, not your head influencing something else. There's no such thing. The brain is not tapped. It is tapped, but when you really begin, like people worry so much about AI, I get it, and I'm surrounded by amazing human beings that are leaders in AI, AGI particularly. Do you get what an AI you are? I mean, do you get the level of intelligence of your ability? So that's why you want to choose a big problem and you leverage that.
And it's almost like the ripple effects become your success metrics. And so instead of picking a goal that might be selfish, like, and there may not be anything wrong with like, hey, I want $20,000 a month of passive income, or I don't know if there's such thing as passive income, but leverage income, let's just say. I want $20,000. So that could be the thing that I try to solve. And that might be clarifying and all, but you're saying if I go bigger, that's something way more purposeful. I could accomplish that as a result of, and so many other things will clarify as well by solving bigger problems. And one of the things I was thinking about was when we're goal setting, we should almost be problem setting. What problems do we want to solve this year? What problems do we want to solve? And then as a result, what are the things that need to happen for me to allow me to do that? That might be something that we would get a lot more success in than making it maybe be a little bit more self-centered.
It's okay for you to be self-centered, because every human being has to start at taking care of their survival. Are you in the process of making money, keeping the money you managed to make, or growing the money that you managed to keep? There's 3 stages of money. So when you are just starting out, it is totally valid for you to say, hey, I got, I would like to have $10,000 a month. If I have $120,000 a year, that's manageable. That will get me started, okay? And then kind of like alongside, you can just say, but you know what? It would be really good for me maybe spend 5 hours a week being of service at that nursing home that I drive through when there's a bunch of people there that have literally been abandoned by their families. What would happen if I adopted a 90-year-old that's in their deathbed and the only world is their television and the curtain that they see and the nurses that come by and change their diapers twice a day? What would happen if I were to just go and adopted a 90-year-old that just became my friend and held their hand while they leave this world? All of a sudden, your deservability begins to build. See, the process is all happening within you, and it's you're the one watching. You know, we have this whole thing about the imposter syndrome, which we all have. We all have. No matter how successful you are, a billionaire wants to be a trillionaire. You know, it's like the monkey mind never stops. Okay, you guys, it never stops. Just get this. This little machine never stops. Now, what you want to do is you want to be able to do self-mastery work. And I want to give everyone a gift, and we'll do a link for them, which I want to give them the magical exercises in my Fridays with Doria platform. And they can do these exercises only an hour when they begin to really get in touch with where their money psychology came from. So again, we are holistic. So just focus on this, everyone. The business success model. I'm pretty sure it's still there. You can go to moneyandyou.com, and the book, The Business Success Model book, is a tiny book that I wrote 10 years ago. It's really adorable. That will explain it to you, but also volume 2 of Money and You will really go into it. Then what you want to do is do the exercises and then pick something that you can spend for starters. And some of us spend a lot more time than this, 5 hours a week being of service, just 5 hours. And you can do 1 hour a day if it's too much for you. But you know, boy, you talk about meeting some wonderful people, and it could be anything. It could be being a mentor, being a teacher to children that are, handicapped. You are needed so much. Once you open up that door and you show up at an organization and say, hey, I want to be of service, trust me, there's plenty to do. So you go for the money. It's okay for you to go for the money because you are building yourself, but kind of add other dimensions to your life. And then what begins to occur is the precision of it all. So I've always had, I don't know why, I like the sum $25,000 a month. I love that. And so, okay, $25,000 a month, that's $300,000 a year. I learned that in the 70s, in my 20s. And then by the time that I created that more in the 80s, right, in my 30s, it was like, oh, that was really fun. Now I want to create that business that I can sell. And because you always want to be thinking 5 years in advance, and books like Exit Rich, I love that book by Sharon Lecter, who wrote the foreword to my book, and she was business partner with Kiyosaki for 10 years. So now you begin to learn on building that economic engine that you can possibly sell. And then, so creating wealth, having lots of money, if that's what you want, that's fantastic. But just have other dimensions to that desire.
Doria, talk to me about leverage and what's your framework of how you teach leverage?
So leverage is everywhere. Even if you have a little money, how can you leverage the little money you have? How can you leverage
what's your definition of leverage?
Oh my goodness. That's such an interesting one. Is to be able to use whatever resource you have. See, leverage, it depends in the context of what you're speaking about. So I'm gonna use leverage in the context that we're talking about in this particular talk. When you go into my leverage book, and you see the 2 chapters, you're going to see different definition. But leverage is really the ability to be able to use whatever resources you have, to create more, doing more with less. That's a Buckminster Fuller quote. To be able to enhance whatever assets you have so you can leverage through people, leverage a little money that you have, be able to leverage your contacts, leverage your knowledge, leverage that which you're really good at. And the one that's really fascinating that people love is to leverage technology. So we're literally going into the universe of leveraging technology. That's what AI, that's what it really does. And it's creating a global paradigm shift that always brings up fears for people, because there's a whole bunch of jobs that are going to disappear, but there's a whole bunch of other things that are going to appear. You can count on it. So make a list. My new definition of wealth is access, which is leverage. So what access do you have? Let's say that you're working on a project. You're going to make a book. You're going to really bootstrap a book publishing. Okay, you don't have that much money. So what you're going to do is now you're going to publish this book, and you're going to do research on what's the best way to bootstrap publishing a book. And you go and you research that. I love Fiverr.com with double R. I love them. Tons of good people in there for very little money. So you can, whatever little money you have, they can really leverage it for you. So you now take a look at all the ways that you can market that book in order for you to create what people sometimes call passive income. And then you focus on being involved in income generating activities. That's very important. So when you leverage your own time in being focused on income generating activities, then now your money begins to grow and expand. And that's really important. So make a list of all the access that you have. Now, if they're listening to you, the chances are that they have access to you. Is that correct? Am I assuming correctly? They have access to you in some way, right? So you are like somebody that could be called a leverageable point.
Yeah.
I'm a leverageable point. You're leverageable. But I don't come to you and say, hey, I want you to be my leverage. I come to you and I say, how can I be of service to you?
Yeah.
Now you're listening completely different, right? So leverage is the ability to use whatever resources you have to enhance whatever goals you have.
I like it. I have this framework that I probably indirectly learned from a bunch of people like you, but I think of like value leveraging. So first and foremost, how you define value, how do you provide value for someone? You got to define who you're serving, what problem they have, how you serve them. And once you figured that out, then leverage is an amplification of that. What are all the ways that I can amplify my ability to create value for people? And there's so many different, it's a fun exercise because you can take someone through and come up with 20, 30, 40 different ways to amplify value creation. And then obviously that's a way that you can make money. But then when you're thinking about investing your money, it's the same concept. I want to invest in my money in places that I understand the value equation. Most people that invest their money have no idea how they just think interest comes magically. It's like, no, if you can't define how you're actually getting paid from deploying capital, I would say that you might be over your shoes and or boots or whatever the saying is in what you're investing in. So it's like defining that, and then leverage is an amplification of that. Now, leverage also gets a bad rap, and I think a lot of it's financial leverage, and a lot of it is when people are amplifying things that are not underlying value creators or value machines. An example is they're investing in some asset that is not valuable, and then they're putting leverage on top of it, and voila, they're not just lose their money, but now they're in debt. Talk to me about how you avoid bad leverage, or is there such a thing as bad leverage when you, the way you define it?
Yes, there's definitely bad leverage, and there's a lot of people in jail for it. It's like I think that the best thing for you to remember is to do market research and really study and build an entrepreneurial mind and an entrepreneurial mindset. But if you're not truly entrepreneurial, be part of an entrepreneurial team. This is something that people, presidents and heads of industries, and they always ask me, is an entrepreneur born or an entrepreneur made? And in Money and You, we have discovered there's a third choice, which is an entrepreneur can be discovered. And that happens a lot in Money and You. But we also have a whole group of people that come to Money and You, and they're so grateful to us because they were ready to invest their savings, borrow money from their family, mortgage their homes in order to get into a business that they had no business getting into.
Yeah.
They were going to have a learning experience. Okay.
That's good.
So what it requires, what money, business, success, being of service, being a person of influence requires for you to study and to learn and to have an open mind and really learn, is it a fact or is it an opinion? How did they really get there? How long have they been there? Where did they really come from? Where did they really study this? And, and some of the beautiful people that, for instance, with Tony Robbins, when people, before they attend Money and You, they absolutely love it. And then after they do Money and You and they do they do a program with Tony, they go, oh my God, I had no idea he was so influenced. Because he'll talk about leverage, he'll talk about.
Well, I think about it. Tony has week-long experiences, very interactive. Robert has the board game. And both of that is an example of changing the environment. Totally. I just love it. I just absolutely love it. And it's super cool to see like how these things are interacting. Doria, you just came out with the book. What are some other gems in the book that you're just so pumped about that as people are reading it? Like what are some of the takeaways that people are going to get as they get your book?
Number one, it's very experiential. It's not a boring book, and it has big letters, big fonts. So
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, we all like big fonts. So it's not a boring book. It's full of flip charts, knowledge flip charts, which my mentor created and put in the world. Have you ever heard of clarity leads to power? Have you ever heard that?
I've definitely heard that phrase, but I couldn't.
That came from Marshall Thurber. It's very famous. Okay. Tony put it on the map. So he has a lot of flip charts. He has a lot of quotes. He has these history spotlights. So, do you ever read a book and you wonder where that came from? Like, where did that come from? So I wrote my book in a way that I create a history spotlight. So if I mention something, I'll go, by the way, blah, blah, blah. And it's short, but we put it like in a little spotlight, has a little spotlight on, has a lot of pictures, but more than anything else, it has self-assessments at the end. So it has how to implement it in. And then it has lots of pictures. But the one that people are really blown away a little bit is how many people I acknowledged. And I have lots of people that I've acknowledged and people that I quoted like you. Like, I freaking loved when you said amplification, right, of leverage. Remember that? And I go, I'm going to quote you. And so I quoted you. And then I met one of your mentors, and then of course he thinks you are the most amazing human being. So then I said, well, can you tell me a little bit about leverage? And then, so now I'm beginning to quote different ways that masters like
which is a form of synergy, which is a form of collaboration, which is a form of leverage. You're playing 4D chess.
And now people are finding out about you. And the reason why I want people to find out about you is because you are at the age that I started my company. And to be honest with you, I know you look a little older now, but when you were showing me pictures of when you got started, and we all know that you look like a child in there. And then I look at you and I go, oh, I was a child. And
Yeah.
mistakes. We talk in the book, we talk a lot about mistakes, but my favorite, all the chapters are my favorite, but two additional ones besides the two leverage chapters. One is called Lead with Purpose, where I begin to explain and for people and social proof of how these principles have now been on the planet for over 50 years. And they have been not only put on the map by Money and You graduates, but also by many others. And then I have a whole area on multimillionaires and billionaires who are doing good. And part of the assignment that I like to give to everyone is that identify a billionaire that you admire, not just because they're making money and they're whatever it is that they're doing, their latest thing, but somebody that really resonates with your heart, and then begin to study them. And if you can, go and meet them, even if it's for just 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's all you want to meet them for. Because proximity is powerful. Proximity is power. But also their frequency will affect your frequency. You know that saying, oh, let me touch you. Oh, let me just touch you. I'm so happy to meet you. Do you know how much truth there is to that?
Wow. Yeah, I haven't really thought much about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you just want to, without realizing, even if you touch their elbow, you're now in their proximity and they're beginning to, we share cells, we share frequencies, we share air. Aloha means to share the breath. We're sharing the breath right in front of them. And now you take your gift. You're worthy. Whatever gift you have, you take to them and you say, thank you so much for even spending this 10 minutes. But if I may give you this gift, and it could be something really wise or something really beautiful, or it could be a book, or it could be organic nuts that they don't have in their country. They don't have something that you read about them that they don't have. You take it as a gift and they will never forget you.
Yeah. Doria, I just absolutely love talking with you. It was very true when we were together. It was very drawn to you, and you just were such a life-giving. And what I love is you're the person that has taught and inspired so many people. And yet you were learning, you were asking me more questions than I was asking you. And I was so amazed by, like, here you are, doing incredible things, and you are a constant learner. And I think that's why you stay young. That's why you have a ton of energy, and you're an inspiration. So I look forward to getting the book. I very much like, how can people best get this book, and then how can people get connected with what you're up to? I know that we're going to also include a link that you mentioned earlier. We'll make sure that gets included. But how can my audience and the people watching this video or podcast, how can they get connected in your world?
Immediately they can go to moneyandyou.com, and I'm everywhere. You can go to LinkedIn and look for Doria Cordova. You can go to Amazon and just put in Doria Money, and it takes you straight to the book. I didn't pick those words. Amazon did. I find that so fascinating, Doria Money, and you go straight to the page. And but may I ask you a huge favor? This is not about selling books. I'm handled for many lives, so I'm good. I'm doing really well. I'm creating a second economic engine in America. I already created an economic engine in the Asia Pacific region. I am exiting from the financial, profitable side of business when I turn 80 on November 14, 2029. It's going to be a big party. Be there, Callum. And then I'll be just moving into service. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you for you to buy the book. And if you can, buy the hardcover book, which is absolutely exquisite. Amazon did an amazing job, if it isn't in your local bookstore by then. And give it to someone of influence and just say, hey, these people have been using left and right brain teaching techniques to teach entrepreneurs for nearly 50 years. Wouldn't that be interesting for you to maybe learn a little bit more? And the book has the dynamite bibliography, which any heads of any university, school system, any person of influence that could transform our educational systems and eradicate poverty and hunger. That's been my thing since I was 27 years old. And that is my big drive. Transform educational systems around the world and eradicate poverty and hunger. And they will now go, oh, and I wrote it with that in mind, So it's not just a favor for me. It's actually a favor for everyone because poverty sucks. It sucks for the person experiencing it. You could be the richest person on the planet, but you will not have freedom if you have a bunch of people trying to knock down your walls and trying to rob you, and you need to have 5 bodyguards in order for you to feel safe. Let's make it a kind of like a good world where we have a bunch of middle class people that just are living the life. And for those of you that want to be rich, but nobody wants to be poor.
Doria, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and being a light. And very, very excited to see the ripple effect that this book has, and appreciate what you stand for.
Thank you. Aloha.